What if I told you that most of your hesitation isn't about failure? It's about being seen failing. Most of your silence in meetings, your careful posts online, your edited words in conversations, they don't come from ignorance. They come from fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being disliked, fear of being judged. And this fear rules more lives than we realize because it hides well. It dresses up as politeness, as perfectionism, as logic. But underneath it all is the same quiet anxiety. What will they think of me? You've probably felt it, that sudden tightening in your chest when you want to speak up, but don't. That hesitation before hitting send, that exhausting replay of conversations, wondering if you sounded stupid, arrogant, or weak. You call it being thoughtful, but it's not. It's being held hostage by perception. The truth is, the fear of judgment isn't about people. It's about power. Because when you fear how others see you, you give them control. You hand them the pen and ask them to write your story. And here's the irony. The more you try to be judged positively, the more anxious you become. Why? Because you're constantly adjusting, masking, shifting your identity like a shapeshifter, trying to please a crowd that doesn't even notice. But here's the good news. This fear is not permanent. It's not who you are. It's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. In the next few minutes, we're going to dissect this fear, piece by piece. We're going to unlearn the lies you've inherited from a world obsessed with validation. And by the end of this, if you stay with me, you won't need to convince anyone of your worth ever again. You'll feel it. And that will be enough. The fear of judgment doesn't start in adulthood. It begins early, in classrooms, dinner tables, playgrounds. As children, we're born unapologetically ourselves. Loud, curious, messy. But soon, we learn the rules of acceptance. Don't say that. Don't act like that. People will laugh. That's not how a good girl behaves. Boys don't cry. And just like that, we begin to split. There's the real self, wild, honest, instinctive, and the edited version, polished, approved, socially acceptable. We carry that split into adulthood, into our friendships, our work, our relationships. Every time we swallow a truth to avoid discomfort, every time we fake a laugh to not seem rude, every time we agree with something we don't believe just to keep the peace, we're not being kind. We're abandoning ourselves. And the more we do it, the more the fear grows. Because deep down, you start to believe, if I show who I really am, I'll be rejected. But here's the contradiction. The more you hide yourself, the less truly accepted you ever feel. You may be liked, but only the mask gets loved. And so you walk through life surrounded by people, but feeling alone. This is the emotional cost of people-pleasing, a quiet, constant betrayal. Not of others, of yourself. And that betrayal creates anxiety. You don't trust your own voice anymore. You hesitate before speaking, not because you lack wisdom, but because you've trained yourself to be scared of disapproval. This isn't weakness. It's survival. Because once showing your truth cost you something. A friendship, a parent's smile, the respect of someone you looked up to. But now you're safe. You're grown. And the patterns that once protected you are now the chains that hold you back. If you want to be free of judgment, you have to first stop judging yourself. That's where the fear hides, not in their eyes, but in your own. So how do you break it? How do you walk into a room, into life, without that quiet voice asking, do they like me? Do they approve? You don't fix it by trying to be more confident. You fix it by changing what you value. See, the fear of judgment only has power when external approval is your currency. when being liked is your reward, when comfort is more important than truth. But what if it wasn't? What if you stopped measuring your worth by how many people smiled, clapped, or agreed? What if your standard was different? What if you said, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be real. I'm not here to fit in. I'm here to stand in who I am. I'm not here to perform. I'm here to live with integrity. Because here's what nobody tells you. When you shift your standard from approval to alignment, the fear begins to die. You stop chasing applause. You stop editing your sentences mid-thought. You stop replaying conversations at night wondering, did I say too much? Instead, you start living like someone who owns themselves, and something magical happens. Your voice becomes clear. Your back straightens. Your energy shifts. Not louder, not arrogant, just grounded. People feel it. They may not know why, but they sense it. You're not here to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And ironically, when you stop caring whether people approve, they start respecting you more. Because real confidence doesn't scream. It doesn't brag. It just is. It's quiet, rooted, still. It's the calm of a person who isn't performing, who doesn't flinch when misunderstood, who knows. If you get me, great. If you don't, that's okay too. That's not defiance. That's freedom. And it's yours. The moment you decide, I will no longer outsource my identity, not to opinions, not to culture, not to temporary applause. Freedom doesn't arrive in a single moment. It shows up in small decisions, quiet acts of self-respect, like telling the truth, even when it's awkward, saying no, even when it disappoints someone, wearing what feels right, even when it breaks the dress code of conformity, speaking up, even when your voice shakes. Each time you do it, each time you choose alignment over approval, you reclaim a piece of yourself. That's how the fear dies. Not by fighting it, but by proving it wrong. You'll feel it in tiny moments. When you post something without waiting for likes. When you walk away from a conversation you don't need to fix. When you stop laughing at jokes that go against your values. When you don't explain your silence. When you don't apologize for taking up space. And with every quiet stand, your mind rewires. You stop seeing yourself through their eyes and start seeing through your own. This doesn't mean you become careless. It means you become centered. You still listen. You still care. But you're no longer ruled by the crowd. Because people's opinions are weather, they shift. One day you're brilliant, the next you're wrong. One moment they admire you, the next they criticize. But you remain. When your identity is built on external validation, your self-worth rises and falls like the tide. But when it's rooted in truth, your truth, it holds steady. And make no mistake, the world will test you. It will tempt you to explain, to prove, to soften your edges, to shrink, to polish, to pretend. But every time you resist, every time you say, no, this is who I am, you win. That's the real work. Not screaming louder, not being tougher, but being unshakably honest. Honest with the world. Honest with yourself. And in that honesty, fear loses its grip. There's something no one teaches us. That fear of judgment is rarely about the people in front of us. It's about the ghosts behind us. The voices that still echo, from childhood, from past relationships, from moments when we tried to show up honestly and got hurt for it. Maybe you were laughed at when you expressed excitement. Maybe you were punished for telling the truth. Maybe someone you loved made you feel small, not through fists, but through glances, silence, disapproval. So now, you flinch before truth. Even if no one in the room is attacking you, your body remembers the sting of rejection. And your brain? It rewires itself to avoid that feeling at all costs. But here's the paradox. What once protected you now imprisons you. You think, I'll just stay quiet. I'll play it safe. I won't risk the spotlight. But playing it safe isn't safe. It kills your growth. It buries your voice. It teaches you to fear your own power. Because if you're always avoiding judgment, you'll never build resilience. And without resilience, confidence can't grow. You don't become powerful by being untouched. You become powerful by being unshaken, by showing up, even when your heart races, by standing tall, even when no one claps, by honoring your truth, even when it's not the popular thing to say. And you start small. You share your opinion even if it goes against the room. You wear what you love even if it gets a look. You say no without explaining yourself to death. These are small acts of power, and they stack. Over time, your nervous system calms, your fear shrinks, your sense of self expands, and the judgments that used to feel like daggers, now they're just wind, uncomfortable, but harmless. Because you've stopped asking the world to define you. You're defining yourself. The most respected people in the world aren't the loudest. They're the clearest. They don't fight to be understood. They don't beg for agreement. They don't chase approval like it's oxygen. They walk into rooms with quiet certainty, and something about them makes you listen. Not because they're perfect, but because they've made peace with not being liked by everyone. And that's rare. Because most people bend. They shapeshift. They lower their voice, soften their message, smile when it hurts, all for the sake of not being disliked. But in doing so, they trade respect for comfort. Here's what no one says. Being respected and being liked aren't the same thing. Respect is built when people feel your boundaries. When you say no, not rudely but firmly. When you hold your ground, not to dominate but to stay aligned. When you speak from stillness, not to impress, but because you believe what you're saying. That's when people stop testing you. That's when your presence starts speaking before your words do. But you can't earn that respect if you're always chasing approval. Because when you seek to please, people may enjoy you, but they won't trust you. Why? Because they can feel the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be. That gap makes people uneasy. But when you close that gap, when your words match your energy, when your silence feels intentional, when your presence doesn't scream but simply holds, people relax. They might not even agree with you, but they'll respect you. And more importantly, you'll respect yourself. Because self-respect is the antidote to the fear of judgment. When your life is built around protecting that inner dignity, you stop fearing what others see, because you know what's real inside. You're no longer seeking validation. You're standing in truth. And from that place, you don't need the crowd. Because you've become your own anchor. The fear of judgment will always whisper. But now, you don't have to listen. Because now you see it for what it is, not a warning, not a truth, just a habit of survival you no longer need. You're not here to impress strangers. You're not here to be the safest version of yourself. You're not here to play roles that keep everyone comfortable but kill your spirit in the process. You're here to live fully, to speak with clarity, to act with conviction, to walk into a room with quiet presence. Not because you demand attention, but because you don't. The most magnetic people you'll ever meet aren't trying to be liked. They're trying to be honest, not offensive, not arrogant, just whole. And when you live like that, something shifts. You start attracting people who see you, not for your mask, not for your performance, but for your depth, for your energy. For your quiet strength. You stop chasing connection and start embodying it. Yes, some people will misunderstand you. Yes, some won't like you. But what's worse Being rejected for who you're not, or being accepted for who you never were. You don't need everyone's approval. You just need your own. And that's what these 15 minutes were about. Not to teach you how to fake confidence, but how to return to what was always yours. Self-respect, clarity, freedom. So next time that fear comes back, and it will, breathe. Pause. Remember, you don't owe anyone an explanation for existing. You don't need permission to be real. And you're not here to be understood by everyone, just by the right ones. The rest? Let them talk. Let them judge. Let them scroll past. You have things to build, a life to live, a soul to honor. And no opinion, no passing glance, no cold comment will ever be more important than that.